Hello. So I'm going to talk today about increasing types in large code bases with Pyrefly, and a little bit of an AI call out there towards the end. My name is Maggie. I have been at Meta for over 7 years now. I started on the hack team, which if you're not familiar is when we decided to put types into PHP. And I pretty quickly moved over to the Python language tooling team where we decided to put types onto Python. So you can see a theme in the last few years of my work. So last year I was here and I gave a talk that was a little bit broader and more about why should you use a type checker in general. So if you are looking for maybe a little bit of a deeper dive on that angle, you can check out the talk from last year. But just before we get started, who is using a type checker on their Python code right now? Cool. All right. How many people are using MyPy? Okay. Pyre? Is anyone using Pyrefly? Okay, we got a few. Okay. So just to recap, last year I talked a lot about this, but why should you use a type checker with your Python code? So you get a faster inner loop. You can run your code less. So it will, as you are typing or writing your code, you'll get that great little red squiggle underneath it that tells you you've made a mistake. You can fix it even before you run it. You can spot typos. I always mix up I and E when I'm typing. And the Pyrefly code base, we have people from London and Canada and the US. So we've spelled summarize, I think, 3 different ways in our code base. So type checker is very helpful. You can make corner cases safer. So I found when I was, before I went to Meta, I was a Rails developer, and I found no matter how many tests I wrote, I was still going to miss something. And a type checker can help you catch those without you having to write even more tests. And then, of course, you can understand your code better. You have built-in documentation, and you have tools like go to definition, which really make a huge difference when you have a huge code base. And maybe you're unfamiliar with parts of it, but you can navigate exactly to the method that you need to look at or the class that you're curious about. You can write code faster. You have autocomplete. You have machine-checked documentation. So what I mean by this is, I know back when I was writing Ruby code, we would a lot of times try to put a comment on top of a method that said what it returned. The problem is if you change what the method returns, sometimes that comment is out of date. Has anyone experienced that? Okay, imagine if you had a type annotation there that when you changed it, it said, hey, this is wrong, you need to fix something. Suddenly your documentation is constantly up to date. You can also refactor with peace of mind. So I do a lot of moving code around, big refactors, migrations. If I add a new parameter to a function, a type checker is going to tell me, hey, you forgot to add it to this call site, which is really helpful. So before I dive into telling you about Pyrefly, which if you saw me with my giant tray, or table, I guess, of shiny stickers, we're pretty proud of, Meta really likes to build type checkers. So we turned PHP into hack, we put Flow onto JavaScript, and then we built Pyre originally, which was our first Python type checker. And we're not the only ones to do this. I know that there is a Ruby type checker. Does anyone know what it's called? I'm forgetting. Sorbet? Okay, yeah, see, we're not the only ones who like them. So why did we build Pyre in the first place? So back in 2017, we started working on a new Python type checker called Pyre. And we had this problem where we would run sort of an open source type checker at the time over Instagram. And we called it the coffee problem, is that you would start running your type checker and then you'd be like, oh, I'm going to go get a cup of coffee while this runs. So I don't know, I've had test suites to do this as well. But it's a really slow drag on your workflow. So we decided to build something faster. You probably noticed the title of my slide was Pyrefly instead of Pyre. So there was a bunch of reasons why Pyre suddenly wasn't the right solution for us anymore. The first was that it was written in OCaml. Does anyone here know OCaml? Okay, how was your experience learning OCaml? Most people went, if you didn't catch it. So it's not the most widely adopted or friendliest language. That it was written in OCaml meant it was really hard to get it working on Windows. Parallelism was hard. The performance was better, but it was still not great. We were implementing things like saved states. We're doing a lot of work just to make it fast enough for our code bases. And we realized that what we wanted from a type checker was more IDE features, and those were really hard to build on a type checker that was designed initially for static analysis. We actually ended up switching to Pyre for our IDE at some point last year. And a lot of people on the team joined Pyre because it was an open source team. We had very few contributors. There were a few issues and not many open source adopters, and that made us really sad. So we decided we had two options. One, we could commit to a major refactor and sort of reworking our existing type checker to suit our current needs, or we could rebuild in a new language and sort of take all of those learnings and put them into something new. So does anyone want to guess what we did? It'd be a really short talk if we were just like, yeah, we're just stuck with Pyre. So we built something new that we ended up calling Pyrefly. So August of 2024, last year, we made this decision. We sat down and decided that for all of the reasons I listed earlier, we wanted to go after something that was a lot more open source friendly. So we started prototyping mini Pyre. So we wrote 7 prototypes using a bunch of different approaches. We decided to use Rust because it was cross-platform and it was fast. And we decided to focus on the hard bits first. So the parts that sort of challenged us in Pyre, we wanted to make sure that our approach was going to work for them. So we went with generics, recursion, overloads, and import star. Whoops, oh no, I spoiled the ending. In October 2024, we found a prototype that worked and we renamed it to Pyrefly, and we went all in on Pyrefly. So we started to implement features, we were following the typing spec, we knew that we wanted to launch with an LSP, so we started working on that, and then we've been sort of making sure that it's really fast as well. So was anyone at PyCon in Pittsburgh this year? Okay, well, you missed our big launch. You probably heard about it. I'm just kidding. But yeah, we launched officially our beta version in May of this year. So why should you use Pyrefly? I know that earlier I asked if people use type checkers, and a lot of people raised their hands. So one of the main selling points is performance. We built this to make sure that it worked on our largest code bases and on sort of smaller open source projects as well. So we can actually type check 1.85 million lines a second, which is much faster than Pyre was. We are 15 times faster than MyPy and Pyrite when we run this on PyTorch. And we're 35 times faster than Pyre when we run it on Instagram, which is one of the largest Python code bases in the world. This is so much faster that when we demoed it for some Instagram engineers, they were like, did you type check anything? So we're really proud of the performance aspect of it. So there's no trade-off between safety and developer speed. It's fast enough to type check on every keystroke. So instead of having to wait, save the file, wait a few seconds to get any feedback from your IDE extension, just happens as you write. We are committed to being fast as a standard. So we've written it in Rust. We've designed our memory representations to keep that. We're parallel. And then we don't invalidate too much, even with cyclic imports. So performance is something that we keep top of mind even as we're adding more type features to the tool. So if you wanted to get started with Pyrefly, now that I've told you all of the wonderful reasons why you should use a type checker and why it should be Pyrefly, you can just pip install and run Pyrefly init. If you are using a type checker like MyPy or Pyrite, Pyrefly init is a command that you should run once, and it will try and pull your configuration settings from your MyPy file or your Pyrite configuration, sort of give you a little bit of an easier onboarding. And then you write Pyrefly check. Simple, right? It's easy. This is my favorite question when it comes to type checkers, is you get it installed, you get it up and running, and then what? Has anyone tried this, and what happened? No one. I've tried this on a lot of projects, and what happens is that you get a lot of type errors. So one of the reasons for that, I'll give you a second. I know looking at code on someone else's screen is usually a bit jarring. The Python typing spec initially said that if you don't have a return annotation on a function, you shouldn't even type check the function body. So for tools like MyPy or early versions of Pyre, we can clearly see that there's going to be a type error in the body of foo, right? It would not be reported because the type checker is just going to skip over it. So when you turn on you turn on Pyrefly, we're going to say, hey, this is an error. So what happens when you run that initial Pyrefly check is you're likely going to get a a bunch of errors that come back. It doesn't mean you've done something wrong. It just means you're going to have to, we've built you some tools to help with this, but you might see more errors than you're expecting. One of the other reasons for this is that we have a very powerful inference algorithm. So we love types. Specifically, I like adding types to code bases that don't have them. We totally understand that some people don't. So we designed Pyrefly to meet you where you are. So we can infer function return types, we can infer local types, and container types. So what this means is if we have an example like this, it's the same example, just a little bit simplified. This is how Pyre would have seen it and how most other type checkers would see it. If you don't have those return annotations, it's just going to fill it in with any's. So you could update this function. You're just going to miss a lot of type inference. Pyrefly knows this function returns a string, and you're probably intending to make a list of strings here. So if later on you add an array or you add something that's not compatible, we're probably going to give you an error on that. And you can see that in our IDE extension, we have inlay type hints. So even if you don't explicitly add these annotations, we're still going to know a little bit more about your project. Okay, so that's great. We have inference. You still have the problem that there's a bunch of type errors that Pyrefly is telling you about, and that's going to be an issue if you want a clean type check. So the first step is to make sure that everything is configured properly. So you can say, I'm just going to type check one directory, sort of really tailor what you're going to do in your configuration file. And we've also made it, this is a big jump from Pyre as well, super configurable. Pyre was really opinionated. You couldn't turn certain errors on and off, really. But we have made that pretty easy for you to do in a configuration file. And I have used Copilot on GitHub to find me examples of Pyrefly configs. So that's a great way to sort of set your project up if you wanted to see examples. Or on our website, we also have lots of documentation. One of the things that we do a lot at Meta is add type suppression comments. It can be tedious to go through if you have 100 type errors to go through and add a comment to silence each error. We built a tool that will do it for you. So you can run Pyrefly check suppress errors and it will add them all for you. So what that looks like is up at the top, you see Pyrefly ignore bad return. That is just telling you, hey, this function has a type error. We're going to silence it for now. We'll come back and fix it. We also have a tool that will remove unused ignores. So you do come back and fix it, and you update that annotation. You don't need that comment kind of littering your code base up. We will automatically remove it for you. This is a tool that I really like when I'm getting started with a new project. Bear with me. It's likely that you have a bunch of errors. When you first get started, you want to make sure that your configuration can find all of the libraries that you've installed, that everything is kind of there as you expect it. So if you run summarize errors, you're going to get an output like this. This is off of PyTorch that I've been playing around with. So you can see that the top file has 153 errors, and there's a breakdown of what they are. If you look at this and you see a bunch of import errors, it's probably an indication that something's gone wrong in your configuration. So you can use this to say, like, oh, I'm going to exclude these two files with a ton of errors, and then I'll come back and fix them later. So you have different options for how you want to navigate setting up the tool. I said earlier, one of my favorite things to do is to add types to untyped code bases, and I like to automate that and put up a bunch of code. So you have, Pyrefly comes built in with Pyrefly infer, which will automatically add types to your code. So if we take this example from earlier and we run Pyrefly infer over it, it can add those annotations in for you. You can commit them to your project, and then everyone can see those types. There are also open source tools that are really great for this. Auto-typing is one that I've used extensively. I've shipped hundreds of diffs probably using this tool. And it is really great for getting like a base layer of type annotations. So if you have a project that has no types, this is a great one to start with. So just a few strategic ones for typing your large code base. Have a sort of series of tools you can put in your typing toolbox. I like to go directory by directory, break it down. If you try and put up a giant PR, the chances of it getting reverted are a little bit higher or encountering a merge conflict. I had this happen this week. I put up a PR that was a little bit too big to PyTorch, and I think like 3 hours later I got a message that was like, this needs to be reverted. So there is a balancing act between putting up changes that are sort of meaty enough that you're making progress and small enough that they're not going to get reverted. So whatever that looks like for your project, you probably have a good sense of what you can get away with. And then the last part is typing is half a technical challenge and half a people problem. So it's so much easier if you find someone on your team or if you're trying to type another team's project to find a champion, find a person who's also really excited about types, and that will just make your life a lot easier if you are kind of the person on your project in charge of code quality or like implementing a type checker. We've also had some success sort of with people in the open source world using LLMs and things like Claude hooks. So you can say every time you edit some code, run Pyrefly check to make sure that it's still solid, that you haven't introduced new type errors. And then the other thing that I like to do is if I'm like vibe coding a new feature, say run Pyrefly check when you make edits, you can make sure that the code that's being added, it's like a function that actually exists, or Pyrefly is going to check those issues. And you can also specify like, hey, only pay attention to these specific Pyrefly errors and sort of improve the quality of code that you're going to get from different tools. So this is what a Claude hook might look like. So you can say after the tool runs on an edit or write, run Pyrefly check. So the Claude has some pretty great documentation for you to set things like this up. And we have been pretty excited as a team to see how people are using Pyrefly in the open source world. And we found this repository where someone is doing something similar, but with the added layer of a lollipop system where they are rewarding their LLM with treats when it gets type checking correct. So if you have any ideas like this, the Pyrefly team would love to see them and see how you're kind of using this tool in the world of AI development. So like I said, we love being open source. We have links on our website to Discord and to GitHub. We love chatting with people using our tool. So we're really excited to accept PRs or help you set your projects up. Yeah, you can find all the different ways to contact us on pyrefly.org. But I'll open it up now for some questions. Yes.
So I've seen your GitHub, and it's still in alpha. So is it production ready, or are there any plans for if we can start using it into Prime projects using MyPyre? So I hate the time it takes in pipelines and developer time. So I would love to start using it. What's the plan on that?
So the question is Pyrefly production ready? We are using it as a type checker on some pretty important projects at Meta. So I would say, yes, it's production ready. Yeah.
But on the release, it still says alpha. So it's something that you are still testing on it or anything like that.
Are there things that we're still testing?
On the GitHub releases, it still says alpha. So is there something that you're waiting for?
Yeah, well, right now we're in beta. We're targeting an alpha launch for, I think, the middle of November. But yeah, we are continuing to develop Pyrefly and the tooling around it. So it is under active development.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? No. Okay.
Yeah, I had a question about the summary tool. When you're pulling those metrics, you mentioned that you can also add the suppression. Is there a way to, does the summary include the suppressed errors, or do those ignores get ignored for the summary as well?
This tool sort of does. Probably it doesn't break them down the way that you might want them to, but when you run Pyrefly check on anything, including this tool, at the bottom it will say like reporting 100 errors, X number suppressed or ignored. So you always have a count of how many ignores are in your code base and that Pyrefly used.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah.
So you showed the command line API, and you mentioned that it works as a language server. Does it also have a Python API where I can like import something from Pyrefly and then like get all the inferred types, for example?
Not quite yet. So it's not an LLM itself. It's just a tool that you can sort of give your LLM more feedback on the changes that it's making. What was the end of the question? Sorry.
So the question is whether it's also basically whether Pyrefly is also a Python package where I can say import Pyrefly and then Pyrefly get me inferred types for this code.
Not right now in Python. Having a type-aware linting system is something that I'm exploring and pretty excited about. We haven't started working on anything quite like that. We do have some APIs that will let you, I think you can say like, what type is this variable? You can generate a file that has the types of every sub-expression, but you can't import it into Python, or I guess not directly. There's no library just yet. But yeah, that's a great idea.
A basic question, what's the difference or interaction between Pyrefly and something like Pydantic?
Yeah, so we actually just added support for Pydantic in sort of a plug-in adjacent way. So MyPy has Pydantic plugins, and then we have support for it as well. And we would, it's brand new, so we would love some feedback on it if you
Thank you.
would like to share. Any other questions?
Yeah, speaking of plugins, I know MyPy has some kind of plugin system to extend some of the functionalities. So does Pyrefly have something like that?
We don't have quite the same plugin system, but we are working on support for Pydantic, Pandas, and Django, I believe, are the top 3 that we're working on right now. But it's not quite the same as the MyPy plugins.
So in MyPy, it's written in Python, so it's very easy to inject plugins, but that kind of limits how MyPy can evolve from there on in. So because we're open source, we figured it's actually easier just to take the most popular plugins, because there are actually only a handful of them in MyPy, and bake them into Pyrefly itself.
Any other questions? We have, oh, is there another question? Oh, there's one over here.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. I have a question regarding like the infer feature. Like, does it also work for libraries that I import but don't have type hinting yet?
If there are stubs or that library is annotated, we should be able to infer some types from it. But I actually haven't tested that explicitly, so I don't want to make any guarantees. But if we can type check it, we can usually do some inference on it. Cool. Okay. I'm going to plug that we are super proud of Pyrefly. We're also really proud of our stickers, and we have a bunch at our booth downstairs. So they glow in the dark, or they're really shiny. We have options. Yeah, if you have questions about how to set up typing on your specific project, there'll be folks from Pyrefly sort of hanging around the rest of the day. And also feel free to reach out to us on Discord or make a GitHub issue. Cool. Thank you.